Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey there, hi there, ho there. This is Ralph Hayes Jr., RH Jr., coming to you live over the internet through a system of tubes known as the boob tube called YouTube, bringing you another manual distraction from all the other things on the internet. A little thing I like to produce, like that I call Spleen Squeezins. Aren't you excited? Lord Almighty knows I am. My oh my oh my oh my, me oh me oh me oh my my. My mama me my mama me me my mama me my me me my mama me. Hey there. That was the sound of me shifting my balance in my chair. My kingdom for a new throne. Every day this thing gets a little bit more uncomfortable. And it wasn't built right when I first got it. Finding a chair rated for somebody who weighs as much as I do is a Herculean task. It requires massive amounts of money, ridiculous amounts of money, and I spent all that money on this chair because it cost me a couple $100, $200-300, and it was the only chair I could find on Amazon that was rated for someone my weight. And I get it. And apparently there was, it was a factory defect because when I put it together, the seat is canted forward, so it feels like I'm constantly being slid forward out of my own seat, and it's exceedingly uncomfortable. And just simply having, I have to rest my butt on the front half of the seat, and just got a butt indentation there now that is all that's keeping me from out into the floor, and puts a strain on my leg, put a strain on my back, put a strain on everything. And so basically I paid top dollar for a comfortable oversized chair, over extra sturdy chair, and what I ended up with was a piece of junk. Oh, for crying out loud. I wish I had more control over this musical conveyor belt that I'm on. It's a feed from YouTube. No copyright music, YouTube audio library. So you can guess why I'm doing this. And the damn connection is now frozen. Hey, I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. Hey, just restarting the thingamajiggy here, trying to fix my web eval. By the way, new chapter up of the Thunder Rolls, a My Hero Academia Captain Marvel cross. It's a My Hero Academia Shazam crossover. It's a rather short chapter, but it's out there. Shazam. After about the fourth time I've it's up to the USJ, and about after the fourth time of rewriting the USJ battle, I'm like, let's abbreviate this a little bit. And we got Lord Hylia, we got YouTuber 1752, and we've got a message saying the YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Wah, you horrible digital bastard. No way to fix it, no way to change it. Yeah, I'm still banned. I'm still on a suspension on AO3. Oh, it turns out that I supposedly I've been on AO3. I've been on Archive of Our Own for about 5 or 6 years now. And apparently they've got a three-strike system. It doesn't matter how many years you've been on there. They're going to dig that son of a gun up you transgressed 5 years. You transgressed 20 years ago. It doesn't matter. They're going to bring it up. And 3 strikes you're out, and you get banned for a couple of months. And hey, guess what? One of the things they were accusing me of, one of the 3 strikes, was a mistake on their part. But they're not lifting the ban anyway. You see, because consistency with your own regulations is for peasants. I'm picturing a complete Karen at the keyboard. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm actually picturing what I'm picturing as a social justice warrior. One of these, mutant hair color, nose ring, earring, maybe a chain between the two so she can flush her nose whenever she wants to. Pull chain, and square horn rim glasses, a perpetual men suck sneer on her lip. You know, the error was on our part, but we're not going to correct our mistake, and we're not going to let you back on. We're just going to ban you, and you suck, and we don't have to we don't have to abide by our rules. Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back on the 19th. I will have access to my archive of our own account on the 19th. I can't even answer. I can't even answer comments section stuff. Complete ban. Complete. I can read my own stuff. I can look at my own stuff, but I can't update it. I can't correct it. I can't remove what they say is the problem. And they're word weasel. They're playing crappy little word weasel games. I told them I didn't. You are forbidden from soliciting for commissions or donations. Every other writer on their every second writer on their site is got to thank you to all my donors in Patreon, and so on and so forth. But I put a little note saying, hey, check out my archives on my website and at my Patreon and et cetera, et cetera. Check out my other stuff. A little note down at the bottom of my page, and Karen was apparently on the rampage that day. That time of the month, and the latte wasn't done right, and decided to ramrod me. We've got 3 strikes against him. Down with the man. And so they locked me out. Now I can't even fix the problem. They say, the thing they say is the problem. I can't even go in there and fix that. Because they're a bunch of dicks. That's all there is to it. I'm really, the some of the management and archive of our own has lost their shine, in my eyes. You know what I'm saying? They accused me of, let's see, the first accusation was that I had committed plagiarism. And this is the thing they came back and they admitted. Oh, yes, you have a note from the original author that you were allowed to write derivative works. Oh, gee, imagine that! Somebody writing derivative works on a fan fiction site. But I told him, I had the blessings of the original author when I wrote my story. I believe it was Shorn, that they got their panties in a knot over. And then along comes the accusation that I harassed somebody. I don't know what the full story was. I do not want to go fishing through like 5 years of back records to find out what it was all about. But as I recall, it was some twit who came onto my comment section and started, throwing sand and kicking up poo, And guess what? I was less than nice and, huggly, cuggly warm to them. And so they took that. He traumatized me and ran off to be a special snowflake at somebody. And the next thing I know, we've got a strike against you for harassing this poor precious snowflake. And I'm like, he came into my room and started being a dick. He came into my room, started peeing in my punch bowl, and wonders why, I have less than warm, fuzzy feelings, or that I was trifle sarcastic with some of his brilliant observations. Yeah. And then he runs off to cry to mommy. Yes, archive of her own managers. I'm talking about you. This broadcast is either going to get me banned completely or, uh, well, nothing. Those are the only two real options. It's not like these people are going to be shamed into behaving like, reasonable people. So. I've said this before and I'll say it again. That color. They're all the same. It's scary. It's like plumage. And I'm like, I look at these women's hair color and I'm like, you see this kind of color in nature to warn you against poisonous animals. Not venomous. Venomous are the ones that bite. If it bites you, you die. If it's poisonous, you bite it, you die. I remember reading, this, some typical, snot flake, that's what I call it, a snowflake who's going to be a snot about it. She's going, well, in nature, that's protective color. It's to protect us from our predators. Being wordsy, clever, and or thinking she is, and you know, trying to snot up the meme, and I'm like, no. No, you see, the coloration of like poison frogs is to warn off innocent bystanders. You know, the predators. The predators. There's a species. The poison dart frog, for instance. They secrete a poison out of their backs, which works perfectly great on everything except their main predator, which is a type of snake that the venom doesn't even affect. So you see, it's not your pretty coloration isn't protection from your actual predators. It just protects you from normal people. Your predators are harfing you down left and right like frogs in a tree. And what are the predators of these feminazis, of these horrible she things? And their caked on makeup and their nose rings and their insufferably toxic personalities. Okay, you got two. You got political activists that use them like a cheap condom. Once they got the vote, once they've gotten what they're after, they throw them to the curb. And then you got the white knights. Every generation has back in Bill O'Reilly, not Bill O'Reilly, P.J. O'Rourke. He used to be a flaming hippie back in the '60s. Even published hippie newsletters and stuff, and he said it was quite bluntly, it was a gimmick to get into the pants of the nearest cute hippie girl. Let's go and talk about nature and about how the man is oppressing us with our over here in the bushes with this blanket. That was the whole gimmick. That's the predators. Every generation of progressive women has men that prey on them because they're gullible and stupid, and that makes them an easy mark for guys who go and zoom in on them. They go, they smooze on up. You talking about toxic masculinity out of one side of their mouths, and chatting them up outside the other. For all their talk, feminists are just the same as any other woman. in what they regard as a desirable male. And a feminist doesn't want to have sex with a cuckold any more than any other woman wants to. Uh, I'm getting a lot of loop-de-loops on this monitor feed. I don't know what the story is. Ah, there we go. Just needed clicking there. But anyway, can you imagine that I'm bitter? I'm so bitter about AO3. It's annoying. But it's a minor annoyance. It's just another. This is just life as it is for a bozo like me. Even if they knew me personally, they wouldn't treat me with any more. They would treat me with less respect than they treat the average street hobo. Okay, because I'm a fat redneck, trailer trash, welfare, food stamp slob, living in a home full of bags of just full of bags of trash and it's just filthy. Nice. Bachelor scum. Except I don't have any booze, drugs, or sex in my life. It's interesting. It's interesting how those three things are always the signs of depravity in our culture: booze, drugs, and sex. Sex, drugs, and booze. Boozy drugs, drugsy sex. Sexy drugs, sexy booze, boozy sex. Sex and violence, violent sex, sexy violence. Yeah. Uh, but I mean, like that's the short list of hedonism in our society. You know, it's interesting. Gluttony is a mark of shame in our culture, but it's not considered a mark of decadence or hedonism. We don't picture, the rich, powerful, and depraved as being fat. And in fact, if a rich, powerful, famous celebrity type person gets fat, they quickly stop being famous and popular. And if they don't pull out of the nosedive, they quickly stop being rich. Unless they're in a very narrow, Roseanne Barr, fat stage comedian, Gabriel Iglesias, track. But we'll forgive him for getting old, Pastor, and we'll forgive him for getting fat. And we never forgive him for getting old. Ooh. Fix myself some meatloaf and taters. Sure tastes good going down, yeah. Let me think. I really didn't want to talk about Archive of Our Own. When I signed up for Archive of Our Own, I went in there with the stated self-imposed policy that I was not going to, delve into the community. I was not going to get tangled up in all sorts of online politics and drama with a bunch of other writers, like I had gotten in with film fiction. Film fiction rapidly turned into a freak factory, and and I fit about as well in there as a skunk at a lawn party. And they eventually ran me off, so I decided to go elsewhere with my stories and everything else. And I found Archive of Our Own. I looked into I've got a fan fiction account. I've got a fan fiction account, but I hate using fanfiction.net. The system is so clunky and it's so complicated. It's so aggravating to try. And you have to fiddle with it and faddle with it, and it was cutting edge like 15 years ago. So it's really not doing the job today. Now but then I found space battles and sufficient velocity. In any of my books will it fully heal All Might. I've got plans for it in a couple of them. I'm hoping to introduce some interesting twists on story ideas. I sat down. I spent the last couple of days, on and off watching My Hero Academia. I'm all the way up to the middle of season 4 at this point. The last episode I've seen is where uh, Ioma, the guy with the belly button laser, confronts Izuku and says, we have something in common. I know, and weirds Izuku out for a while, and then he explains, your quirk is, you're like me. Your quirk is not compatible with your body. And Lord Harley, I picked that Space Battles Avatar pick. It was a meme I saw on I forget where. It's interesting how just by changing Kermit the Frog's eyes to allegedly normal, that he really does look like. Well, he looks like just with that little change. He's got that 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 roofy suppository look. You know, like, what was that Siberian story? The stream where you were looking in cuts off. Okay. Newspaper Mama. It's called. It's on sufficient. Let's see. It's on Space Battles. It's called Newspaper Mama. It's Newspaper Mama Thread 2. It's a worm self-insert. That's the joke. She's the Siberian. She's got striped body, and the newspaper joke. What's black and white and red all over? A newspaper. Well, anyway, it's a self-insert. The guy's sitting there, at his keyboard typing away, and then, sudden flash. He looks down, and he's in the Siberian's body. He had in the middle of a meal. If you know anything about the Siberian, horror central right there. And he looks up. He sees the Slaughterhouse Nine sitting around him. And he says, "Screw it." He walks over to she gets up, walks over to Jack Slash and says, "I've come to the conclusion that you're a cheap knockoff of the Joker cosplaying as Sweeney Todd." And then she ripped his head off. Just Anyway. Newspaper Mama. Google it. On spacebattles.com. Enjoy. When I do readings, don't have to read my books. I can do others that I like. Yeah, I could. I'll have to poke around. Man, I'm picturing myself reading Earth and Sky, But that's not a bad idea, actually, reading Earth and Sky. I'd have to have somebody else come back in behind me and, like, add music in the background and stuff. Thematic stuff in the background, to make it work. I'm trying to get a ball rolling here. I started late, started at 9 p.m., so I have a commission. Dang, I wanted to. It's freezing rain out. I've got to get the trash out today or tonight because the trash guys come tomorrow. Oh well, it's hard to. I have an audience. Unfortunately, they're a small audience and they're literally scattered around the globe. There is no one time where all my audience is doing the same thing. So it's like crap. If I could get them all together and synchronize their watches and such, maybe I'd have better luck with my more self-promotional efforts. But let's see here. File new. Ding, ring-a-ding-ding. Let's see. Gotta remember to delete this. Okay, let's switch over. Got one Valentine's Day card for Daniel Meyer, and that's been it so far. And there's no other orders lately. So there we go. No, that's not it. That's not it either. Okay. Some. Just getting a general positioning of everything. Okay, this one's going to feature four little chibi drawings. That's the little cute character drawings. So, with big heads, tiny bodies kind of thing. Okay, that can go. It's not cooperating. Let's see. Pictures. Documents. Downloads documents. Commissions. Old Vic. Old Vic. I remember when you could only give so many letters to a computer file name to save memory. That's how old I am. That's how freaking old I am. Okay. Let's see. Did I get the? I didn't get the channel switcher. Why is it not showing? Why is it still showing? Is it still? Is it not? Why is it not? Why does it keep doing that? Okay, there we go. It's just a little display issue. Little display issue there. Had to fix. Got excellent stream health at the moment. I'm all a Twitter. Let's see here. I've always drawn couches the same way with these overlapping arms, probably because of the couches I grew up with having those same funky arms. Uh, let's see, let's see, let's see. Okay, it's just ticking along here. Okay, that's working. That's working. That's not working. That's working. That's not working. Anyway, let's see. Okay, got homework to do. Lord Hiley has to go do homework. It's 9:30 at night, so I've become such a lazy beast. The fact of my health, my health went in decline was really, really unfortunate because it went in the general direction of my worse inclinations. In other words, as I grew more unhealthy, as my legs started swelling, as I started having stomach troubles and heart troubles and kidney troubles and this trouble and that trouble, and it encouraged me to be lazier. Because hey, I've got an excuse. I can. Starts out where you have to stay in bed for a few days at a stretch, and pretty soon you're doing it of your own volition, and you're not. And you put things off and postponing things. And I'm so tired, and you are tired. That's the thing of it, and it's a terrible, terrible tailspin. I've never exactly been what you call a workaholic. I kind of regret that. I wish I was one of those people that were just type A personalities with just nervous energy. They had to be doing something, do, work, do. And I'm like, all those genes, I don't know. They didn't get past me. My sister seemed to have gotten a few of them, but she's, you know, sh- she managed to get married, raise three girls, one of whom is already married herself, and has, and she's now my sister's now a grandmother. I'm a grand uncle. Yay! I'm a great uncle, I think. Or is it a great uncle or a grand uncle? I don't know which is the correct term. You're not that great. But anyway, and and they're like I believe they're all 2 years apart, three daughters, and so stair steps, and it was she's I look at her and she's got a happy a happy content uh, God fearing Christian home. Her family is well off, and her children are doing well, and they're doing so marvelous for themselves. And me, eh, it's like where how far back do I have to go before I figure out what went wrong, God? Because I never seemed to have it together like she did. You know, and it questions. It makes you question. You see somebody who lives a devout Christian life and is living happy and healthy and prosperous, and your faith is a wreck, and you're plagued with, even at your best points, you're plagued with doubts about your relationship with God, and uh, well, doubts about your salvation, everything from your relationship to God to your out just plain salvation, and because your life's a toilet, relatively speaking, compared to pretty much everybody else uh, you know, fellow Christians who, you know some fellow Christians who are struggling with a lot of things, but they still seem to have their life partially under control, and yours is like I picked this lifestyle up out of a dumpster. So just you wonder about yourself, and you're a little short for answers. Nobody can give you an answer that gives you peace. That's a sad thing. Peace. And I'm a 48-year-old man who's distracting himself with pastimes. Distracting himself from from the wreck his life is in. Just with childish interests and pastimes and uh, hobbies he's trying to pass off as a career or an income. And so it eats at you. It's an awful thing to look into the mirror and realize, hey, guess what? By pretty much most metrics, you're this generation's black sheep of the family. And not even a particularly interesting or entertaining one. I've got a couple uncles-in-law that they seem to be their lifestyle seems to be built around taking the trophy cup from me for family disappointment, self disappointment too. Uh, of course, I got a lot of family members who are half bubble off plum anyway. Yeah, I keep promising myself I'm not going to go off on one of these downhill slides on another show, and here I am back. Here I am again on the road again, on the skids again, on the skids again. I'm a family shame to the kids. Oh, I'm back on out on the skids. I'm 48 in a body of a 68-year-old man, and a 60-year-old fat man, and just, it just shuts me down. You know. Okay, I've got the sketch down. I'm going to let it marinate mentally. I do that. I spend a lot of time just sketching, and then one day I sit down and ink up a bunch of stuff. Um, it's an outlet. It's an outlet for me. So I just. Urgh. Feeling a lot of aggression right now, and I'm dreading. When I stop the when I stop the broadcast tonight, I'm going to have to put on my bath, put on my try and bundle, drag some of these bags of trash out and drop them into the trash can. It's been sleeting today because I was so lazy and didn't get it done yesterday and didn't get it done during the day today. Well, it was raining yesterday too. Well, crap. If even if they don't pick it up tomorrow, I can at least get the trash out to the trash cans. Phase one, I could at least do that. So I am not going to walk out. You know what? I'm not going to walk out into the cold and dark just to try and beat the trash people to the curb. I wonder how much extra it would cost to hire them to just come in and carry it out themselves. I'm that sad. Uh, but yeah. Uh, Coincidentally, for those Valentine's Day cards, anything beyond anything beyond PG 13, and I charge extra. And content is negotiable. If I say I won't draw it, if it's something I won't draw on principle, I'll refund your money. But uh, oh my, it's starting to come down out there now. Yeah, I think the darn trash can just sit right here until there's dry weather and I could go out and drop it in without either freezing or drowning or slipping and breaking my neck. This is why people have kids. Not for all the romantic reasons and crap everybody says, because they want somebody who can do the dishes and haul out the trash when they're old. Do not underrate that. And I've still got that leak in my roof in my bedroom. It's not coming all the way through, but the mold is spreading across one corner of my bedroom ceiling from where the roof of the trailer needs to be tarred and probably tar paper or probably even given serious drastic repairs. I would love, while I'm dreaming, in fantasy land, and I actually have money, seriously, uh, where I actually have money to pay somebody. I dream of just taking, like, having somebody nail tin, sheets of tin, all the way from one end of my trailer roof to the other end. It doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be pretty, but if we nail down some tin, put a little, dab a little tar on the nail holes and such, and it would make this trailer last another 20 years. But I can't even get down my front steps on a regular basis, so I go, forget me getting up there on a roof. Man, if I tried to climb up there, I'd come right through the ceiling. I guarantee to you. It's not really. I'm pretty fairly sure it's not rated for a 400 plus pound man to climb up there. Yes, it's that tragic. I'm 400. I weigh 400. Last time I weighed 450 pounds. I'm ballparking. I think somewhere between 50 and 100 pounds of that is just the fluid in my legs. But that still leaves me at about 350 of actual hanging weight. So even if I pretended my legs didn't weigh, the fluid in my legs didn't weigh anything, I'd still be, dangerously too heavy to be doing any of that crap. Up on the roof, crunch. Hey, thud. For that matter, while I'm dreaming of it, I could screw it. All the things that need to be repaired in this place, repaired, replaced, removed, cleaned, ripped out and rewired or plumbed. Uh, I might as well just wish for a whole a brand new trailer, a brand new mobile home. I might as well. I might as well, because by the time I finished handing out all the money, I would have, all this imaginary money that I'm never going to have. That I finally finished paying for it all. I would have spent enough to go out and buy a new trailer, and just and refurnish it and everything else, and just have this one hauled off and shoved into a landfill, contents and all. But that's not going to happen. I'm just hopeful to keep from being evicted, and it's getting closer every day that I might. Of course, everybody in a trailer park is behind on their rent by God only knows how much. I'm not being told, but it seems to be the general consensus, the general state. Everybody sends in money whenever they can, but we're all falling further and further behind. At least I hope I'm not the only one. I have enough social shame as it is. But yeah, I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not trying hard enough to do what needs to be done. Documents, pictures, pictures. Here we go. This is a children's story I drew ages ago. It needs it's not exactly Good Night Moon. There was some head honcho lady, lady in charge of one of the major New York libraries. She nearly managed to destroy Goodnight Moon single-handed. She was one of these activists. She pushed for literacy in children. Unfortunately, she had very particular ideas of what constituted worthwhile literacy, and she thought that stuff like Goodnight Moon was crap. And so she refused to stock it in her library. And because she didn't stock it in her library, nobody else in the rest of the country bothered to stock it either. It was just how things were done. Is the New York, one of the major library in New York. His irony is how she died. She ended up in the hospital, had to go to surgery. Was joking with the nurse about how spry she was feeling. Did a high kick in the bed, dislodged a clot in her leg, which raced to her brain, and she dropped dead seconds later. Just boom. And it's interesting to think that a horrible sudden death by heart clot, blood clot, saved Goodnight Moon from eternal obscurity and extinction. Uh, what I'm planning on doing is correcting the orientation of these pages, doing a little editing on some of the pictures, clean them up a little, turn it into a book file, and publish it on Amazon.com. Amazon, yeah, and maybe some miracle will occur. You know, 18, 19, 25 pages. I've yet to design a cover. It's just repetitive actions over and over here. Let me switch it over. I didn't realize I forgot that I didn't have the window capture. Yeah, let you look at this while I'm working on it. It's a very very read to me uh, book. What age group is it for? It's for the read to me mommy age group. Okay, 23. This was ages ago. I drew and wrote this ages ago. Stuck it in. I shopped it around to publishers and got back form letters. Might as well publish it myself. See if it gets better results. Rotate canvas. Rotate. Little scanning error there. Why does it refuse to do that? Why does it always do that? Yes. Jeez. I'm sure this is exciting as heck. Is watching me rotate pictures. This was back when I drew this back when I was still working with pen and ink and paper. I do everything digitally now. Everything. And okay, let's see here. Save. I have to tell the damn thing, 2 or 3 times. Yes, I do want to save this file, stupid computer. Exactly in this format, exactly this way. Stop it. Over the course of my life, I took an interest in it basically because it was the only thing in school I enjoyed and that I seemed to be fairly good at. Maybe, by and large, maybe that was just the fact that you go into an art class and the art teacher is probably the least likely to criticize whatever crap you create. You go into any other classroom and they got standards. And that I can't help wondering how that misled me. When I was younger, I used to love science. I loved the science class. It was so invigorating, so exciting learning all these new things. All these cool things about space and planets and plants and animals and physics and all that stuff. And but there's a big leap of difference between learning cool things in your science class and actually having a love of having an innovative enough mind to come up with new scientific questions and the meticulous love of researching them. You see all these people. Oh, I love science. No, you don't. You love the cool stuff science brings. All the pretty pictures of fractals and space nebula and cool stuff you can do with your cell phone and all that crap. And all the weird, neat, cool stuff you read about in your news bulletin. But actual science, the meticulous process of forming a hypothesis and testing it with experimentation and then documenting everything. Oh no, no, very different passions drive that. I'd go into it, but I might have been, I might have had chops as a science teacher. I love learning cool stuff and telling other people about it. So I try and well, I go into the art class and they hand out the brushes and the paints and the pens and the pencils and or whatever else we were working on, and the artists, the art teacher's motivation, was all about motivating us and telling us, oh, this was so nice, blah 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 blah, and and I do have a knack for it, obviously, but there's also the thing where I wonder if I wasn't just substituting art and cartooning for actual writing. For years, I loved science fiction books, especially at the library. I loved books, especially science fiction and fantasy. I wanted to write cool stories like that. And, but it was such a slog. It was so slow. And it was never very good. And it frustrated me. Then I discovered the idea of a picture being worth 1,000 words, and drawing a funny picture to go with a story, took it a long ways. And thus, that was another contribution, my shift to my interest in art. Don't get me wrong, I do love art. I'm fascinated by it, and I'm fascinated by the world of art. The art community, and their desire to, in a way, expand consciousness through creativity. To well, that's basically a summarization of how I saw it. That these fine artists were out there. They were trying to expand human consciousness, make people think in new and profound ways, and think of new things. And being living in a very conservative family with a very conservative Christian upbringing. Uh, well, there's a certain limitation, a certain uh, outlook that anything that isn't deliberately or overtly having to do with the church and with religion and with God, if it if it isn't blatantly overtly uh, uh, having to do with those things, then it doesn't matter. It might as well not exist. As in, I looked at the world of art, and I looked at the world I came from, and in the world of art, they would look at uh, uh, you know uh, a beautiful sunset, and the artist would find all sorts of poetic feelings and meanings and you know you know emotional things that you couldn't express in words. And it seemed like in my family, my dad would look at us, he would look at us, oh, hey, neat, oh, hey, neat sunset. And he wouldn't think of it anything more unless he could use it for a Sunday school illustration. You know, my father is a theologian, and he has a very, he is obviously, he is all about all things theological, I suppose you'd say. And have you ever had somebody you found something that moved you or affected you in a way you couldn't express in words, and you wanted to share that with somebody else, and they had no interest in it, or they I mean, like you find like a restaurant that the food just blows your mind with how good it is, and or or you find this recipe this particular dish or recipe that just makes you swoon with the flavors, and you bring this other person over and you're like, oh, try this, try this, try this, it's so wonderful, and they're like, yeah, so, and then they go, oh, that was nice and filling, and they go on their way. uh, if you've ever seen Ratatouille, that Pixar movie, or the trailers, the commercials, and that one picture that couple of scenes where the main rat character is trying to get his brother to understand, all the things that he felt and experienced, and all these sensations and connections, that he felt eating something, high quality and exotic, and it was eating a gourmet piece of cheese, and to his rat brother, the cheese was cheese, whatever, and and he would his brother was a rat and would chow down on anything, but the protagonist was somebody who experienced so much more out of it, and it was so frustrating for him because he couldn't share that with anyone. None of his other rat family uh, cared about that sort of thing, and they couldn't understand why he did. And I felt that way so much about the things I was interested in. Speculations about the world beyond our own, about other worlds, about other peoples, and you know the the art world to me seemed like a whole other plane of existence almost. I used to have dreams about how that I had applied to a art college, and man, I don't know, the weird mental image I had of what life was like in an art college. It was like some sort of weird hippie art transcendental experience compute where everybody was being creative all over the place. Uh, it, it's it, when and it means something to you, and you can't, and you don't have the words to explain why, and none of the words you have will cross the gap between you and that person you're trying to talk to. It's a very lonely feeling. And I was probably falling, I was falling in love with a world that didn't really exist, probably. You know, you know, of living, of philosophical living that that didn't exist, and it was a delusion probably. But it felt reading these people talking about the deeper meaning in sculpture and art and poetry and all these people striving to say something with their art in a language with no words. And something about that just allured me. And I poked around on the fringes, but there's no real, uh, you know, there was no there. There's no, outside of uh, a couple of unusually flaky art teachers. uh, it was outside of my realm. And I got into art, and I found that the more I tried to do art, I couldn't do the pure art stuff in the same way. I tended to I tended to make stuff that told stories. The image would tell a quick story, and again, cartooning coming back into my life again. And that was me. I spent my early teenage years pining away for a world that didn't exist. A state of being that didn't exist. And I let more important things go by the wayside, I think. Real things, things that mattered. And I've spent a vast portion of my life now trying to make this life for me as a cartoonist happen. And I'm, it's I just can't seem. I find random people who come by and look at my comics, ooh yay, and they're gone. And maybe and no matter what changes I make, no matter what I do, uh, it's just not there. And I never cross the threshold even into being on the first rung of the ladder. And and I think what made me stumble so much is that the it seemed an almost heretical idea that art would have any value in and of itself with or without some sort of religious reference in it. That art could be it didn't have to be a Bible tract or a promotional for a particular Christian value. That it could be good in and of itself. The way that God spoke in the book of Genesis, talking about creation. And He looked on it, and it was good. Not because it just was. I don't know if that was wisdom or foolishness, and I won't know till the end of the day, and the end of days. will God look at me and say that what I did with my life, had any worth, or will He say that I was a wicked, foolish, and slothful servant who wasted his life? And and I wonder, is anything that I pursued in my life, was any of it worthwhile? In a truly divine, godly, spiritual, uh, you know, cosmic sense. Man, with so many questions and so few answers, and okay, I've only got 5 more pages to do here. The Bible says that in the end times, when we finally stand before God, all those that are saved will stand before God, and their works will be judged. And it'll be judged whether they were done, whether they were worthwhile, whether they were done for God's purpose or godly purpose, and whether they were you know worthless. Wood, hay, dime, precious metals and diamond gems, or wood, hay, and stubble, and that they would trial by fire. That anything that was selfish and worthless, truly, without worth, would go up in a puff of smoke, and what was left would determine what reward we had in heaven. I'm wondering if I got anything, anything at all. Or if I was a fool. You ask any three Bible scholar, you ask any three Bible scholars a question like that, and they will have 6 different answers. I'm really tempted to do all these pictures over again. Redo them completely. My art style and skill has changed so much since then. And the final page. Three different beeps it makes before it'll let me save the darned image. Give me a break. There we go. Tired. Just sitting here, just poke, 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 turn, poke, poke, click, 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 click. Well, the story I wrote is she is just a mom, single mom. Ugh. When I originally did it. Okay, Elon T. Mug, No, actually, I'm missing several, two or three different of the pony tribes. There's more than three. You've got the flutter ponies, you got the sea ponies, you got the night ponies, the thestrals, everybody calls them. You got the crystal ponies. That's and then the regular Pegasus. So that's five tribes I haven't even touched yet. Assuming I just stick to ponies, throw in a couple of griffins, maybe a dragon, away we go. Maybe even a hippogriff. My latest chapter of the Thunder Rolls is getting a lot of hugs, thumbs ups. They got the thumbs up and they got the all the other ones, and they got the one that's hugs, and I'm like, I guess it was touching and emotional. I think this is the first. I think I'm sure that they're out there, but I think my story is the first one I've seen where it turns out, where the Nomu, where they realize that the Nomu used to be people, specifically children that had been kidnapped and experimented on. It's supposed to be canonical that Izuku's doctor. It turns out that Izuku's childhood doctor is actually a member of the League of Villains, or whatever, and that he's the one that's been creating the Nomu, and that the fat kid with the bat wings that used to hang out with Kachan, that was his grandson, and the evil SOB turned him into one of the Nomu. Oh, oh well, from what I understand what I didn't like about what the My Little Pony did with the hippogriffs, because they had the My Little Pony movie, and they introduced the sea ponies, like, awesome, they finally got the sea ponies in, and they made the hippocampus version of the sea ponies, the ones with the four hooves, with the front hooves and the flipper tail, rather than the seahorse sea ponies from way back when. But and then, they're not really a pony race. They're actually hippogriffs who magically transform themselves, and at the end of the movie, they all transform themselves back into hippogriffs. And I'm like, you jerks, you you had no, why? No, you know. As far as I'm concerned, headcanon. The sea ponies and the hippogriffs have nothing to do with one another. Bite me. Come out and fight me if you don't like it. Yeah. Chapter Unlimited. What is Unlimited? Is a story I was reading. Oh yeah, this is there's a version of there's the My Hero Academia fan fiction where basically Izuku gains the abilities of One Punch Man in the same way, just exercising the crap out of himself. He doesn't have a quirk, but he's still the most powerful hero in the world. It's like, ah. Pardon. There's I think my favorite, the one bit in the latest chapter I'm proudest of is the kids, actually is that Izuku, using the wisdom of Solomon, figures out that the Nomu is actually a child. You have to read the scene to figure out how and why, but the kids are standing. All the students are standing around, and he reveals that the Nomu is just a child. He basically horribly injured it and battered it into submission, and it's curled up in a ball, sucking on its fingers and weeping. And it said, "No hurt, no hurt." And one of the girls, Momo, they turn around. The other kids turn around, and she's headed over for where the unconscious, where Shigaraki's lying unconscious, and she's got a baseball bat in her hands. And one of the other kids stops her. He says, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm about you. Nothing, nothing. I'm just going to administer some first aid to the villains." Is it with a baseball bat? Very enthusiastic first aid. And the other kids, you can't go down this path. You're trying to be a pro hero. You can't go down this path unless you're willing to share with the other children. Give us a couple more baseball bats. Got a tire iron? Yeah, the trying to put when you're talking about the Captain Marvel stories, is a much more upbeat, much more uh, a lot more childish innocence, despite everything in the character of Captain Marvel for obvious reasons, and and the adventures of Captain Marvel were lighter than the Superman comics were, even for the time. You got to realize. I mean, one of Captain Marvel's worst nemesis was a super intelligent caterpillar. It was that kind of superhero comic. Anyway, uh, I'm checking something. Bibbity bobbity boo. Let's see here. Why is everyone so scared of Disney? Variety.com. Well, basically because the blasted company is, it is completely forgotten the vision of its founders, of its number one founder particularly, and is trying to swallow the entire world like a python with no gag reflex. Just little things like that. You don't think that Disney could do horrible, evil things, but I mean, look at it. You wouldn't think a chocolate company of all things could be doing horrible, evil in the world. Nestle is out there trying to lay private claim to water in third world countries. And the CEO is on record as saying that access to water is not a human right. They buy up an entire river and pump it into a factory and then sell it to people in bottles. And their bottling plant just basically wrecks everything downstream from it. And they do things like give out free baby formula to new mothers in various third world, and they only keep it up long enough. They keep it off exactly long enough for the mother's milk to dry up. She starts feeding the baby the formula, and she stops breastfeeding. The baby, her milk dries up, and then they start charging them for the baby formula. Nestle, evil bastards with chocolate. Good night. Why is everyone so scared of Disney? Duh. I mean, look at what they have done. They're like a bull in a china shop with our culture and our folklore and our legacy of storytelling, and just come on, hello, wake up. Where was I? I was looking for, what was I looking for? I forgot what I was looking for. I need something chocolatey. I've still got meatloaf to eat, but I was gonna make up some oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. I got a bag of chocolate. I got a couple of bags of chocolate chip cookies, chocolate chips, and I got a bag of chocolate chips, and I just gotta dig up the oatmeal cookie recipe, make the oatmeal cookie, throw in like 2 whole bags of chocolate chips. I even have milk. Yay! So I'd better make them quick before I drink the milk all up. Uh, I forgot what it was I was looking up on here. It's I started talking about why is everyone so scared of Disney. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, TV tropes. This TV tropes has become my one-stop vanity shop.
Have they updated my TV Trop page yet?
They still haven't made there's still not a page up for El Araira yet. Wah.
Why not? I don't understand.
There's one for all my comic strips. There's one for Coyote, Ladybird, My Hero Academia, The Thunder Rolls, Deku the Warcrafted, but El Araira, you know, no love.
This is me dropping a massive hint the size and shape of an anvil on your foot.
Nope, no new updates on the Thunder Rolls. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, my vanity has been thwarted. Wah! Boo-hoo! Woe is me. No love. Okay. It's interesting how Batman, I work alone, and he doesn't get along. Yet he's ended up at this current point. He has 3 different Robins simultaneously, as well as Batgirl, spoiler, Batwoman, Oracle, who used to be Batgirl, and he's got a whole freaking Bat clan, The Owl House. I've never heard of it. The name sounds familiar, but I've never heard it or seen it or what is it? I've never seen the Owl House. Can't say I've ever seen it. No, let me look it up. I've never done that. Let's see. Owl House. The Owl House. No, it's a Disney Channel thing. I've never seen it then. Call that a given. Little girl goes to a magical world and becomes a witch's apprentice. Maybe I'm a hypocrite for saying it, but it seems way too many much of our pop culture is getting more and more fascinated with magic, and especially with witches and such, and witchcraft. I know there's a big gap between the fairy story Hocus Pocus and the real life witchcraft. But I think we could all stop doing their promotional work for them. I'm probably a hypocrite for talking about it because I've got so many stories that are basically fantasy, set in fantasy settings and feature quote unquote magic. I mean, shoot, the Shazam My Hero Academia story is a, features it's supposed to be, the whole ball's supposed to have been started rolling by a wizard. Come on. So, yeah, I don't know. Whenever I stop and think about it for a long period of time, I start questioning that. Of course, my point is, I usually take the route that, when I write a variation, it's always, the Clark's Law version of magic, sufficiently advanced, whatever. But you look at all these people who write Harry Potter fan fictions, and man, they take the bit in their teeth and they run with it. Oh, they have Harry Potter out there celebrating Sam Hain and Yule, and Yule, and dancing around the maypole, and and performing rituals by moonlight, and and the whole Wiccan Reed. One of the purposes of folklore and fairy tales and stories and such is to help children as they grow up to learn to distinguish between it's practice for distinguishing between what is real and what is make believe. But more and more, there are people out there that want to use make believe to lead people down a primrose path in reality. The Loud House. Now, I've seen a couple episodes of that while I was in the hospital. I'll give them credit. Interesting idea. A family with 13 kids, one boy, 12 sisters. And the rather interesting family dynamic that goes on. So, give them a cookie for that one. What was? Oh yeah, there's another comic called another cartoon called Amphibia. Amphibia. Let's see if I have the name right. Let me look it up. Cartoon Amphibia. Well, the basic idea is that there is this girl, teenage girl, her tween age, and she here. Let me pull it up. And let me do the window capture. The idea is that this little girl, tween-age girl, she and her friends get a hold of a music box, which turns out to be magical. They open it up, and This one gets sucked into another world, the world of Amphibia, which is inhabited by talking frogs. It's very cute and it's very clever, and it also it's not only it manages to be like My Little Pony is both episodic, and it has a long story arc. As she's trying to find her way back home, and as you go along, after the first couple of episodes, you get a little bit more back information. It turns out that her friends were basically a couple of she and her friends. Let's just say that her friends were the sort of uh, you know troublemakers that would their idea of fun is getting their friend to go along with something stupid, reckless, or dangerous. Basically the definition of bad friends, and that they didn't just find the magic box. They talked her into helping them steal it from I forget whether it was a store, but one of the more popular things with teenage kids, you know, talking each other into shoplifting, that kind of crap. But and it goes into the first couple episodes. It builds on that, and she makes friends with this little purple frog guy, who's also sort of a social misfit in his community because he tends to get in a lot of trouble. He gets in a lot of dangerous trouble himself, and but anyway, he oh, lost my train of thought. Uh, one of the first, you could particularly call it a special episode almost, because her attitude when she first arrives is that you're gonna be my friend. A friend is somebody who helps you do whatever you want. And that's her attitude that she's picked up from her human friends back home, because that a real friend will help you do whatever it is you want to do. And she nearly gets herself and her friend devoured by a swamp monster when she ignores the "Do Not Swim" sign on a local pond. Because by and large, the frogs in this world are not the largest or most dangerous creatures in the swamp. And each of the episodes is just basically learning about what real friendship is. It's basically a distaff version of the theme of My Little Pony. That she's gotten a lot of things wrong, and she's having to get them straightened out before they screw her up. It's cute, it's funny, it's fairly clever, fun to watch. And but all they kept doing was re-airing the same 2 or 3 episodes. Oh, and here's another thing: her other two friends apparently got sucked through into the magical world too that she's in, and they have not turned out as well as she has, as you can see in this picture. Didn't get to those, the episodes further down, but you could see where this story was going. It was very interesting. Very, very, very good quality. Really going out in a new direction with this thing. I believe, if I remember correctly, the people that created Amphibia also worked on My Little Pony, and I forget what else they worked on. But but color me impressed. Okay, let's see here. Just sifting through buttons and just opening stuff and checking things over. doesn't want to play. Here's just okay. The Dragon War. Do you think if do you think that do I think that ponies could begin hunting dragons? Considering that the first adult dragon we saw was the size in the cartoon was basically the size of a jetliner, and it was not the largest of its species. No, I don't think ponies will be hunting dragons. Quite the opposite, in fact. If things got ugly, no matter how many, no matter how badass the little ponies are, no matter how, and the fact that they could mass up an army, we're still talking a Godzilla scenario with even the smaller ones. And when you're talking an entire country full of creatures that can wreck crap the way Godzilla did, no, this is not. This is not the ball you want to start rolling. I know I said, I surmised in my own stories that there would be a truce between the ponies and the dragons, uh, you know, a peace treaty, if you will, and a trade agreement. But the peace treaty, basically, uh, you got a scenario where it's one man versus a hornet's nest. Why would the dragons keep a treaty with puny little ponies? For the same reason that you know, uh, you know, one man versus a hornet's nest. The hornet's nest would be exterminated, eventually, but the man in question would not be having a fun time doing it. And that's if the man was exercising caution and wasn't and was trying to prevent burning down his house, trying to get rid of some wasps in his attic. If the man in question didn't care, it wouldn't even be a question. I remember when I was a little boy, maybe about 7 or 8 years old. We living in a housing project called Kinsey Green in Xenia, Ohio. And one day in the middle of summer, I went out there. I was outside playing, and there was a bunch of kids gathered beside one wall of the building, the apartment building that we lived in. It was a bunch of a bunch one of those. Well, anyways, it was a two-story high building, and up in the eaves, you're just up into the gutters. There was a big old hornet's nest, a wasp nest, and there was this one kid. We were all standing out there watching. There was this one kid. He had to be about 2 or 3 years older than everybody else there, and he had a rubber band and some folded up bits of paper and cardboard. And he was shooting those wasps down. Now, I thought he was the coolest badass I'd ever seen in my life. Of course, I didn't realize that how bad an idea that was because he was. I didn't realize. First of all, I didn't realize that he wasn't Quick Draw McGraw. He wasn't the world's greatest marksman. He was just firing the paper pellets at the wasp nest and hitting whatever got in the way of his pellets. The old joke about shooting a flea off a dog's back. I can't even see one at this distance. Don't worry, they're always there. And second of all, I didn't realize how bad an idea that could be because the wasps were agitated as heck, but they were 2 stories up, and to my, I was fairly certain that they weren't going to fly all the way down here to me and the others on the ground to sing it. And there was a little pile of the only wasps that were down where we were a little pile of dead wasps directly under the nest. But if I'd have been a little bit older, I would have been a little bit more aware of just how far an angry wasp can fly. So this is a life lesson right there. The cool kid, the cool looking kid, usually isn't as cool as you think he is. He's just dumb lucky enough to survive his own stupidness. There's one guy who was he was commenting on people in real life that seem to have real life plot armor. They live like maniacs. They engage in stupid stunts all the time, and do all sorts of crazy, stupid, illegal, unethical, immoral, indecent, and outrageous, and incredibly dangerous stuff. And they're constantly coming out of it without a scratch. And you're going like, how? I mean, you look at the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger and his crew. I've seen beef jerky and dried apples that looked fresher and healthier, than these guys. These guys are old enough to be grandfathers, great grandfathers. They're in their 70s, and they have spent decades living. They spent decades living the hardcore rock and roll, sex, drugs, booze, and everything else in rock and roll lifestyle, unhinged and uncontrolled. Wreck the hotel kind of crap, and yet they're all alive. They're all alive. The last decade or so, they went clean, allegedly, and got rid of all the drugs at least, and cut back on the booze. But at that age, they should have already died of cirrhosis of the liver. But they just seem freaking indestructible. And you got this one no matter where you live, there's always this one jackass and his friends who are constantly doing things that should have won them all the Darwin Awards. They're going out there, they're shooting power lines down with their rifles to, and they're doing all sorts of crazy crap, and climbing the flagpole in front of City Hall naked, that kind of crap, and tipping cows with an angry bull in the field, just crazy crap, and it seems like either it's just either God is protecting them for some reason, or the devil doesn't know they exist. It's just bizarre. The guy wrote. He said you got to realize these people, they've been living like they have well, he said basically hidden skills, learned skills for surviving all this bat monkey insane crap that they do, that you don't really notice. Like I don't know, some sort of sixth sense that tells them just when to stop snorting coke for the night. So their brain or heart doesn't explode, or they know just how close they can get to the chained up pit bull before the chain snaps, or they've already, and if it does break, they've already subconsciously plotted out 15 escape routes through the backyard and over the fence. They're still getting away with those stuff because they've got like, and it looks like they have Batman and Joker's plot armor combined. It's an interesting hypothesis, and certainly makes a certain amount of sense. Yet these guys, this is why they can keep doing all this stupid, crazy stuff, because they've gotten very practiced at knowing, just instinctively knowing just how close they can dance to the edge, and this is the reason that other people who end up trying to imitate them do a double gainer and break their necks on the bottom of an empty pool every time. I don't know. I don't know what it is with people. Don't know what it is with me. So, who am I to, how can I talk too loud about the shortcomings of the rest of it? Think about it. Think about it. Every time you hear about somebody texting while driving and getting in an accident, for every person that does that, there are thousands, literally thousands or tens of thousands of people over the world who do it on a regular basis. And somehow they manage to never, ever so much as get a fender bender. Well, seriously, what can you say? Mm.
And I'm already starting to fade out. Let's see, it's only been a little bit over 2 hours. Oh my word. Let's see. They got an article here. A Tesla autopilot car often swerved towards the same barrier. One day it killed its drivers. And I'm like, well, I hate to break it to you. That sort of thing happens when you have test vehicles, experimental vehicles. Whether you're talking a car with anti-lock braking and airbags, I mean, you got to figure that quite a number of people who test drove some of the earlier models of cars that we take for granted now suffered serious injuries, or maybe even were killed. It happens to pilots all the time. But they're trying to make it sound like Tesla just ritually sacrificed the guy on a stake. Come on. They're trying to design a vehicle that can drive itself. This is what we call high risk activity. I just opened another can. I've already got one. Well, at least this one's empty. Dr. Pepper. I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, everybody's a pepper, and you like to be a pepper too. People are going to be remembering that 10,000 years from now. They'll be digging it up, and the crystal space whales will be digging up the remains of our city, and they'll be singing, "Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?" Of course, everybody's going to be looking at me 5 years from now going, "What are you talking about?" Make me feel like an old fart. How many of you remember, "Where's the beef? The beef!" There's a Wendy's ad campaign back in the 80s. Where's the beef? Three little old ladies with a short little dumpy one in the middle. And they came in there, and they're making fun of the fact that most of the burgers at the time were covering up the meager amount of meat with great big huge fat buns. And they go into the big bun restaurant. They get a burger, and they lift up the bun, and there's just this teeny tiny little patty that's barely the size of the pickle sitting in the middle of this bun. And "I can't find the beef. Where's the beef?" And the little old lady, "Hey, where's the beef?" And they did about 3 different ads with her. And the funny thing is that she went off and did another ad for Prego spaghetti sauce. And they showed her happily cradling this giant jar of ragu in her lap as she sat on in her favorite chair. "I finally found the beef," because beef, tomato sauce, and Wendy's had to fire her because it was in her contract that she was not to do ad campaigns with that based on that slogan anywhere else, and so they let her go. She passed away a few years later after that, but still. For a while there, anybody, it even became a chant at sports festival, sports games. They have, the opposing team would come out and they'd start chanting, "Boom, boom, where's the beef? Boom, boom, where's the beef?" Nobody remembers that now. Nobody's old, everybody is just out there, not there. Oh, well, Daniel Myers did a review of Birds of Prey. Well, they actually changed the movie name because, apparently out in the box office, this movie about Harley Quinn and the other girls of Gotham is starting to bomb, and they want to preserve the Birds of Prey franchise. The Birds of Prey franchise is about Gotham heroines, superheroines, and Harley Quinn is not a hero. And so they change, but Harley Quinn is the lead character in this movie. So, they started calling it Harley, they calling it Birds of Prey, the Emancipation of Harley Quinn. Some sort of name like that, to try and, make a divide there. But apparently Daniel Myers says it was, stupid fun, so. Darn it. Well, my microphone is on, so the song, so you should be able to hear me. My microphone is on. The connection is on. Oh my. Right now, we're getting a lot of rain, snow, freezing rain, snowy rain, rainy snow. It's like, it's cold and wet outside. It's not very much fun. I'm glad I've got my little bitty heaters, and I'm ever so very glad I've got my nice warm snuggy robe. I love my snuggy robe. My snuggy robe is so lovely. I'm keeping the old ratty one. If it gets really, really, freezing death cold, I'm gonna double layer it. Wear the ratty one underneath the nice warm snuggy one. What was I about to pull up? I forgot. I was about to type something in, and I forgot. I hate it when I do that. I forgot what I was going to search for, too. I was going to search for something. I forgot what I was searching for. That's always fun. Your brain gets, you're just cooking along there, and your brain goes, I'll be getting off here and going on elsewhere. And for those who have just tuned in and didn't know it, there's a new chapter of My Hero Academia, The Thunder Rolls, the Boku no Hero Academia and Shazam crossover. How exciting! Birds of Prey, yeah. And I was going to look something up, and I don't know what it was I was going to look up about it. And I don't care. But apparently, even Rotten Tomatoes can't hide how this one's, it's apparently a box office turkey. Gobble, gobble. But Daniel Myers says he liked it, so, stupid action movie night for him and his wife, so it probably lives up to that. If you're not going to go watch a movie about Harley Quinn looking for something cerebral, I remember one episode of Batman the Animated Series. It was all about Harley Quinn, and it was supposed to be Harley Quinn. It was something like Harley's Day Out, and what it was is she had it was supposed to be she was finally getting parole from Arkham Asylum. She was finally being let out to live life as a civilian. And the thing of it is that she went out, and she was sincerely trying to be a law-abiding, productive citizen, and things just went ass over tea kettle. And she goes into a store, picks out a dress, she starts to buy it, and it sets off the alarms. And she freaks because the security guards start closing in and everybody's not looking at her. She's like, "Wait a minute, I didn't do it." And she pops her and regresses back to being Harley Quinn. And everything keeps snowballing on her. And by the time it's all done, Batman has to go in and save Harley Quinn's life from all the havoc that's just careening towards this massive collision. You have to see it. It was hilarious, and I just laughed my ass off at it. You probably have to go digging it up on YouTube or something. She was, people keep trying to make her. The sad thing is, yeah, I could accept her more as a sympathetic character if she wasn't hanging out with a guy who kills people with acid. I'm sorry, she's just as evil. She's just about as evil and violent and psychotic as the Joker is, and that's the opposite of funny. And I had my crossover story, the Ridiculous Six, where six guys end up dropped into the DC Comics universe, and one of them has the misfortune to run into he wakes up, he's up on the rooftop of a Gotham City warehouse where the Joker and Harley Quinn are plotting out their next psychotically evil crime. And this guy has woken up with powers themed sort of on the Green Goblin. Not the same franchise. Who cares? And he has to stage a rescue to get this little girl out of this psycho clown's clutches. And in this story, I made a point that Harley Quinn was not sexy, cute, or funny. And in fact, she looked like a heroin addict made up in clown makeup. Check the slider at the bottom of the video. If you're getting the spinny circle, check the slider. Make sure it's all the way over. Because if it's anywhere other than all the way to the right, it's going to try and replay, and it can't replay yet. I really got to write the next chapter of The Warcrafter. Of course, I've really got chapters I got to write. The next chapter of everything. This is what happened when you let your hobbies get out of control. They stop being hobbies and start being a non-paying job. Which is a bummer. Bummer-de-dummer. Yeah. I've found checking the slider works when refresh doesn't. Can't think. like I said, I got all the way caught up on the My Hero Academia anime. Even all the way past the arc where they rescue the little girl Eri. And I tell you, that was yank on your heartstrings kind of stuff. And you're like, well, and Izuku and Lemillion finally managed to rescue Eri from the clutches of the evil monster who had been torturing. And you're like, Iga, Kriga, Bandola, Tarzan, Kriga, ay. You know, you think you hate the villains now. Wait until the arc. If you haven't seen that arc, if you hate the villains now, wait until that arc starts. Because this adorable little girl is in the clutches of this monstrous sadist who it's not enough that he's experimenting on her like a guinea pig, and basically just doing horrible things to her in a laboratory. He's got to tell her that she's cursed and evil and that everything she does causes somebody to die, and just you know if just you know time for an intervention with a tire iron to the head kind of evil jerk. Well, because why should I update the Warcrafter next soonest? Because it's been sitting on a cliffhanger. Of course, I've also got it wouldn't hurt to update everything. I've got so many stories, and some of them have been sitting for months, or the better part of them was a couple of them better part of a year. Just yeah, I want to finish up the Slaughterhouse Nine. I've got a couple. I'm still going. I still got a ways to go. They've got to confront. They've got a battle with Leviathan, and they're supposed to eventually have the big grand because you write a Worm story, eventually they're going to have the big grand Golden Morning battle with Skyon in some form or other, or they have something happen that intervenes and prevents kills Skyon off screen. If you've ever read, there's one fan fiction. It's called "It Gets Worse." It's a Worm fan fiction where Taylor triggers with a power that gives her insane luck. As in, she doesn't go out and start winning the lottery or anything. What happens is if anybody tries to harm her, bad luck befalls them. And the worse they try to harm her, the more dramatic the bad luck is. And it is pee your pants funny. I'm going to have a very interesting end. I've already got the end more or less plotted out for Darth Vulcan, and it is a twist ending. It's going to be a very surprising and unusual ending, and I'm hoping to defy a few conventions in the process. But anyway, in the story in this fan fiction, it gets worse. A ridiculous chain of events unfolds, and Scion actually gets killed by accident. Off, off stage, basically. And nobody even realizes it. He just disappears one day. Because Taylor's quirk decided that Scion was a threat to Taylor's happiness. No, it's not even a conscious power. She can't even control it. It's just her power, her shard, arranges bad things to happen to bad people who try to make bad things happen to her. And as to the story, Darth Vulcan, it's not Dark Vulcan. It's not Dark Vulcan. It's Darth, Darth, like Darth Vader, and his last name is Vulcan, like the Roman god Vulcan, Vulcan. It's a spoof on the old line from Back to the Future. Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. And his minions shortened it to Darth Vulcan. But anyway. Okay. I'm looking for stuff and I'm trying to find it. I'm not finding anything. Okay, that guy with the guy with a plan to end world hunger. You're talking about Accord. Accord is a villain in Worm. Basically, he's one of these great social planners, who thinks that he's got the formula for utopia. And yes, he's eventually going to be brought in and exterminated. Because look, every horror show in human history, especially in the 20th century, was started by a man with a vision of utopia. Everything from Jonestown to the Holocaust. Every communist regime, owes its start to Karl Marx, who is basically just a utopianist who thought he had devised the perfect system for how perfect theory for how the world should inevitably progress to a classless society. Blah 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 blah, and utopianists. They're all that. Uh, Adolf Hitler, he didn't go around frothing at the mouth and biting people. He was a man who genuinely believed that he was bringing about heaven on earth. He thought that his plan was to wipe out all the inferior breeds, put the most evolved race of humanity in charge of the entire world, and that they would build a empire that would last 1,000 years. The Third Reich, and the unholy hell he unleashed upon the earth. And he genuinely believed he was doing a great and noble thing. Yeah, well, all the other stories have a core to help out. Not all the other stories. A lot of the other stories. A lot of the other stories forget the fact that the guy's a psychopath who kills anybody who doesn't wear his tie straight. He's insane. He's violently murderous. He's basically picture somebody with OCD and OCPD crossed with an axe murderer. And I'm sorry, anybody that anybody that promises utopia, run the other direction, run away, and shoot over your shoulder. If you're lucky, you'll peg them. The unholy hell that's been unleashed on the earth by people trying to bring about heaven on earth. Because these people that want to build heaven on earth don't care that their plan invariably and inevitably involves building a mountain of human skulls for a foundation. Try again and fail again. And a few more million people die. Fascism, it was a plan for utopia. Communism, a plan for utopia. Nazism, plan for utopia. The French Revolution, run by people who were planning a utopia. And they ended up with severed heads rolling in the streets. Every abattoir, just countless abattoirs in history by people trying to build utopia. And this character Accord would be no different. And he demonstrates what kind of philosophy and morals and ethics and thinking would go into his brilliant master plan by the fact that he thinks nothing of killing somebody for not living up to his ridiculously perfect standards. He was a monster. And very few stories, most. Let's be honest. Most fan fictions are written by kids who are young, dumb, and full of cum, and think that Che Guevara was a hip dude. Kids that are incapable of thinking, the narrator, he's supposed to be a super genius, and so his plan must have been super brilliant and super perfect, and it couldn't possibly be like every other utopian plan in human history. Don't take advice on how to build paradise from an axe killer. You'd think that would be obvious. Somebody who murders people isn't going to give a rat's ass if his wonderful utopian plan crushes people in its treads. People like that regard other human beings as the grease for the gears and engines of their masterful, their masterful plan. They're monsters. And it galls me and it depresses me greatly that so many people are just too naive, too unwilling to use the bare minimum of their own education to sift this stuff out for themselves. I've lost track of the number of times I've gotten in arguments with people. People say, "Oh, well, in this story, Accord has the brilliant plan that's going to solve world hunger and create world peace and solve the Middle East problem and make sure that we can all eat ice cream 3 times on Sundays." And I point out he murders people for walking into his house with muddy feet. He's a psychopath. And a man who will casually murder somebody for offending his aesthetics is not somebody you want planning out your world, your civilization or your culture. No. And the fact that these people, other people aren't horrified at the very notion distresses me on a level I can't express. Yeah. That's like somebody hiring a guy to work in your house as a housekeeper and chef, and they go, "Oh, he's a Satan worshiper, and he stabbed his roommate to death 2 weeks ago, but he's such a brilliant cook." Well, he's rational in a sense that he's perfectly functional. So calling him crazy is misleading. It makes it sound like he's hee wee stabby stabby. But no, he's rational. He's logical, reasonable. He's functional. He's able to go out and function in society. But if he's given the opportunity, if he sees an opportunity, and if his perfectionist aesthetics are offended, he thinks nothing of killing somebody. He thinks nothing of killing somebody for being rude, intentionally or otherwise. He thinks nothing, and you can imagine what he thinks of the idea. Oh, there's only one flaw with your perfect plan Accord. What is that? He says, "Oh, well, your plan involves hundreds of people being ritually sacrificed every day to make it work." And he's like, I fail to see the problem. That's what you get, Amiga Dragon? No. In fact, well, actually, this has been 3 hours now, and I'm about to wrap it up. I did a little sketching earlier today, and did a little editing on an old children's storybook that I'm planning on putting out on Amazon as soon as I get it turned into once I've designed a cover and touched it up a little bit. But no drawing tonight. Yay, cracker. The people don't want to accept the idea that when this has been if there's any sort of message in the Warcraft is that you can't sacrifice your principles to save the world. Because all these things, you think that it sounds like a reasonable thing to abandon your moral principles or your ethical values, and just for this purpose, and you don't realize it's a deal with the devil. And everybody, people say, well, according to canon, Cauldron, the evil. The evil organization that is basically screwing up Taylor's world in the name of saving it. Oh well, they're the ones that save the world. No, they're not. The world gets saved precisely in spite of everything that Cauldron did. It wasn't their army of artificial heroes that saved the day. It wasn't all the atrocities they committed. It was one lone girl who literally sacrificed everything she had, even her own mind, to fight one last battle against a genocidal monster, and was rewarded with 2 bullets to the head as a thank you from this marvelous eternal organization. Okay, thanks, Ellie and T Mug. Hope things get better for you. So do I. uh, but you know, okay. Of course, the message is probably kind of lost in the fact that the Warcrafter, our protagonist, arrives and he basically goes through and he's basically like a bull in a china shop, breaking rules left and right. But the idea is that the rules and the system that they're working by is crap. That it violates just basic concepts of morals, right and wrong, to be the way it is, and he's not going to play along. You know, they asked him, why did you intervene? You interrupted Taylor's. Taylor was supposed to become this creature Capri and save the world, from destruction. Why did you intervene? You've thrown all that off track. And he says, I don't call that a victory. Where 90% of the world's population dies, and it's all done, and the world is saved by the sacrificing one tragic orphan child. No, that's not a victory. And you say if I'm going to build a new future, it's not going to be one that runs on the heart of a forsaken child. As the meme goes. And it's a matter of faith. It's a matter of believing. People mock faith. I would rather use reasoning. Well, I'm afraid reasoning is like a flashlight beam. You could be at work, and you could stand out on the front step of your office and turn on the flashlight and shine it in the direction of your home, and say, I'm not going to go anywhere until that beam reaches all the way from here to the front door of my house. Knowledge will only get you so far. Faith is a matter of believing, even when you can't. It means believing that the values that you espouse hold true even in the dark, even in places where you can't see. That God's design holds true, both in sunshine and in rain. That it holds, what is moral and just and good and right and kind, and which is the only acceptable way to do things, is true, in the day or in the night, in the warm spring sun, or in the bitter cold of winter.
regardless. And it's really not that profound an accomplishment to have faith, to believe that the road is paved on beyond the end of of your headlamps. And that if it isn't, you're going to be competent enough to work your way around it. No, it's just, this is why people just say, yeah, moral absolutes. Because we've, those of us who believe in them, have kept our eyes open and have seen that moral values persist, and that those that demand to cling to them persist as well. You can't save the world by burning everything that made the world worthwhile in the first place. Bayleaf? He says, he points out that the founders of Cauldron. One of them was a barely educated woman stranded from Earthbet in a Bronze Age civilization, and the leader, the leader and her, Doctor Mother, is neither a mother nor a doctor. And she's pretentious enough to take both those titles for herself to make herself look more competent and authoritative than she actually was. And her second in command is the Contessa, and they've been following this master plan laid out by her power. She asked her power, how do we kill Coil? How do we kill Skyan? How do we defeat him? And it gave her one answer, and they've been following. It gave them an answer rather than them determining if it was the best answer. And the answer they got, well, dark days, the thing of it is that her power gave her an answer. First of all, it was, this is a shard. It's anything it provides them is, information provided by the enemy. Even if the enemy is unaware. Second of all, it has, it is condition. Whether, regardless of which of the alien entities the shard came from, her shard, is repeated over and over and over again. That shards are optimized for conflict. That they choose partners that are optimized for a great deal of conflict from their perspective too.
Oh, I drifted off there for a second. Sorry about that. Let's see. Oh well. I don't know what to think about that. I'm your first encounter with the original material worm, and through my fan fiction. I don't know what to say about that. Hooray, hooray! I suppose. Hooray me, I guess. Uh, yeah. People are just incredibly. It's surprising me. Just people, just fans of this story, but they are just absolute zero moral clarity on moral and ethical issues. Throughout the story, Taylor, she does a couple of things that are you know, questionable, but nearly everything she does right from the start, it is her, making the most moral possible decision that she can, and taking the most moral possible course in a world where horrific things are happening all around her. Uh, Even the point, in the story, she joins up with the Undersiders. The Undersiders being a two-bit supervillain quartet that teenage supervillains that she accidentally rescued from Lung. He's basically the local flaming dragon Hulk. The angrier he gets, the larger, stronger, and flamier he gets. And if he gets mad enough, large chunks of the city end up getting torched. And she managed to take him out. Just she dropped some. Basically, she dropped some Black Widows down his pants. And a bad encounter with one of the local hero leaders of the Protectorate, and she decided to strike out on her own. The problem was that she encountered the Undersiders, and they thought she was a villain. And to maintain her cover, she joined up with them. Her plan originally was that she was going to basically be a mole. And she dropped basic hints of that to Armsmaster, the jackass superhero she encountered earlier, and he left her out to dry. And she ended up going native because the villains, ironically, these teenage criminals treated her better than anyone had, in years. Her father basically ignored her. Her best friend betrayed her. Her classmates made her an outcast and a pariah. And then there was authority figures treated her like crap. And these four villains were the first people that treated her, worth spit. And so she ended up becoming loyal to them. And she goes out. She goes out and she battles monsters for the sake of her home city, and she battles. She ends up fighting villains and Army's a psychopath. And every choice she makes, she has to do horrible things. Just gruesome stuff sometimes. And the supposed heroes of the story turn out to be crooked as a dog's hind leg, and that's being kind to most of them. And they basically try to blackmail her, and the Superwoman package hero of the setting, Alexandria, tried to get her to betray her friends by pretending to murder them one by one. She dragged body bags in and dragged them past the room to make it look like she was killing off the Undersiders one at a time. And Taylor flipped out on her and choked her to death on a swarm of cockroaches. But the city was torn apart by Leviathan, and there was no infrastructure, and the government wasn't helping, and the villains ended up having to take turf. The Undersiders ended up having to basically become warlords over various areas to keep the other villains, some of which included actual honest to god Nazis, from overrunning the people. And in the end, and the final battle, the only way that she could save the world, even with the end of the world, with an evil alien monster wiping out cities at the rate of one an hour. Everybody was fighting each other. Everybody was squabbling with each other, and she ended up letting a supervillain tamper with her brain so that her power expanded, and she basically hijacked, the entire army of heroes and villains, and used her power to get them all literally to work as one mind, and conquer and defeat Skyon, and saved the human race from being wiped out. And even then, they had to evacuate to the next world over through a portal, because the world was so wrecked from the battle. And her reward for constantly struggling to do the right thing, even when things got bad, 2 bullets to the brain, and she was dumped through a hole in time and space on still another world left to die. She'd been given a shit sandwich every time she sat down at the plate, and it got bigger and with more shit between the bread every time she sat down. But you talk to people, you listen to people that talking about Taylor, and they all go off on there'll be certain things that what it boils down to is that they show no moral discretion or clarity of thought themselves, and it boils down to they talk about this or that thing that Taylor did that was really, really icky and horrifies them personally on a gut level, and this was the evil deed she committed, and you look and then you ask why she did it, and it should be it should be clear that she was doing the ugly but necessary and right thing in the worst possible circumstances. Like there was one horrifying scene where there was this villain called was it the Valeyard? Heartbreaker. No, something like that. And he had the power to literally, if he made eye contact with you and spoke to you, he could make you his adoring slave in a matter of moments. And he had this guy had an entire compound up north in Canada where he lived with all his sex slaves and his offspring, who he tortured to make them trigger with powers as well. And Taylor, the only way she could stop him, she knocked him out, and she had flies lay maggots in his eyes to blind him, because that was the only weapon she had, and he was within seconds of conquering her mind as well. And they were talking, oh, this was such an evil deed by her. Or they have this one scene where she kills Coyle, the homicidal maniac, another one who is basically trying to set himself up as a criminal overlord of her city, and who had kidnapped, drugged, and enslaved a little girl to use as a personal forecaster because she had precognitive powers. And so, in order to arrest the girl, it came down to it. She had to put a bullet through his head for her and her friends and the little girl to get away safely. And this guy is a monster who would his power was the ability to split the timeline in two, and then pick the one he liked the best, let the other one fade away, and then travel on down that timeline. And his favorite hobby was splitting the timeline, raping and torturing and murdering his underlings. One of his underlings then, clicking over the timeline, dropping that timeline, picking the other, and no evidence of what he had done. He was a monster beyond parallel. And she, it came down to it, she got him at her mercy, and she put a bullet through his brain. And there's so many people talking, oh, this was the evil deed that caused her fall. And it's like, it was a moral deed. It was she was doing it for the sake of her own survival, and for the survival of the girl she was the little girl she was fleeing with, to protect her. And people don't see it that way, but they don't see it that way because they're wrong. I don't see it that way. Well, you're deaf and you're blind and you don't know nothing. I don't see it that way. Well, congratulations, you need glasses. Anyway. Oh yeah, I've seen all sorts of buildings built out of those steel shipping containers. That's where I came up with the idea. Because there are people who built all sorts of fortresses and underground bunkers and just anything and everything. And frankly, I've lived in a mobile home, and I look at how a home made from one of these steel boxes would be, and I'm like, this would be a far better solution. It would be barely any more expensive. It would be highly durable. It would be safer, more hygienic, healthier, easier to heat and cool, and just up and down the line, all sorts of things. It would be an improvement with just a few design changes. But you can't get anybody to go for that. Nope, not gonna go for that. Ain't nobody got time for that, no. So you got these companies that make houses out of fiberboard and ant spit to hold it together, and nobody was expecting anybody to live in a mobile home for more than a few years. They were supposed to be temporary buildings. The problem is that they're still built as if they were temporary buildings. People, they're becoming permanent households. If and not to mention, more in a few cases, the retirement home. You know, got people up in their age, just living out their golden years in these trailers, and it's and considering what what neglect is, what even a little neglect in this place is gone to seed and falling apart, and no. Oh my. Okay, I'm dozing off again. Okay, YouTuber, that iconic picture looks so good. What iconic picture? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you could tell me. Now I like this one. Somebody's barking back at all these people that are trying to pass off as hot wing broccoli as being good as hot wings, and it's called Beyond Broccoli. Introducing Beyond Broccoli, made from 100% real pork. Have a craving for food without the disgusting taste and texture of broccoli? Oh, what is that? Oh, they got pictures here of Joe Biden kissing his granddaughter. And no, no, you don't understand what I'm saying here. What? Let me pull up the image. There is something seriously, freakishly wrong going on, just barely behind the scenes with Joe Biden and his family. They're constantly spotting scenes with him, manhandling young females in public in a really creepy manner. So yeah. No, 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 no. I like this. Two new alignments. First, chaotic lawful. I have a strict moral code, but nobody can figure out what the heck it is. And then there's lawful chaotic, which is creating as much chaos as possible by following the letter of the law, usually to ridiculous extremes. Like, okay. You want to sit there and you want, okay, calm down, Lucifer. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, shipping containers, they can cost upward, like $2,000 plus delivery. But if you're going to make a house, I want to think you have to consider, you have to consider the cost of materials and everything else that goes into making a mobile home. Just making the framework, and and the floor, floor, wall, ceiling, building the basic framework. The steel container probably cost just about the same amount, maybe a little bit more, but it is going to be sturdier. It's going to be longer lasting. So you're coming out way ahead, as opposed to what these things are built out of, cheap plastic siding and 2x4s with you know crap nailed over, cheap crappy pseudo wood nailed over top of them. Floors made out of fiberboard and particle board. Yes. Plus, I've rattled on about this before. I've got a mental plan for how differently I would build a mobile home. Changes I would make to the basic design. I would add I would add a gabled roof. An angled roof. Wouldn't have to be very steep either. Just enough, and it would be about just a foot or two above the actual roof of the trailer of the sim. And on the roof, there would be panels that would be a solar water preheater. You run the incoming water line up to the roof, run it through these solar panels, and then down to the water heater. People that do that, it saves them hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year in heating water. We're talking people who live in Alaska using these things. Okay, you can imagine how useful they'd be just about anywhere, because the water arrives in your water heater already heated up partially. Your electric or gas water heater doesn't have to strain as hard. And I would put skylights. I would put frosted skylights. They're these light conducting tubes you can put in every room, so that the entire place is lit from the inside. The windows would be smaller, and they would be double pane, but there would also be these frosted light skylights to help keep the interior illuminated. With nice, and I would put the wiring would run along the top, or it would run, all the wiring would run along the ceiling, and drop down in different locations for outlets and such. The outlets would be about waist high everywhere. Most people put outlets down. I've yet to see an arrangement where there are very few things that we have that sit on the floor and plug into the wall. Most things that we have sit up on desks or on tables and or on kitchen counters, and they have to plug in at about waist height. Plus, when you get old, bending over to try dig around and try and find that outlet behind the sofa or back behind the bed is just cruel and unusual punishment. And then the wiring would run along the ceiling, the plumbing would run along the floor, along the baseboard, and it would be accessible. It would be either exposed or it'd be accessible behind a panel, a removable panel, so that if there are any problems, you can get at them wherever they are. There would be valves at strategic locations so that you could turn the water off to different parts of the house. Uh, Everything would have to be easily accessible, but the plumbing would be inside the house essentially, so that it would not be in danger of freezing. Because one of the biggest problems that these trailers have is that other than the fact that it's blue murder keeping them either warm or cool, is that the plumbing freezes at the drop of a hat. Because it runs along the underside of the trailer, and even if you pack insulation up under there, if the insulation goes bad or anything else happens, voila, you've got frozen pipes or burst pipes, which is even worse, under your house. And if you are like me, if you're somebody who's up in years, you're not exactly going to be equipped to race outside, run around the house, turn off all the water, and then go crawling around underneath and fix all the leaks in your pipes, Uh, gas lines I would probably keep outside the house. I'm just like that. Uh, the house would have, a given, the there would be a breezeway up top, with a little electric fan to blow the air through, and a breezeway underneath the house to blow the air through. There would be and these are small additions. Most of them just consist of cutting larger holes in certain locations. And one addition I'd make to any mobile home is that they would come with, among other things, a small wood-burning stove, appropriately ventilated. It would have a propane gas-powered electric generator. So, because even when, the electric goes out way more times than the gas does, way more frequently. But if the electric goes out and you still have gas, you could turn on the gas to this a little propane generator, or hook up a propane tank to it and have power in your house. And electricity is more than a luxury in the modern world. It's a necessity. You need electricity for heating, for cooling, for cooking, for heating water, for running a telephone so you can call for help. Everything, for lighting, for everything. And we have made so few efforts to make sure that we aren't caught flat-footed if the local power plants, if the power lines get knocked over by a tree or something, if that happens, we just have to sit there in the dark and wait. And I've seen situations in this area. Not all that long ago, we had a couple of years ago, we had a huge, epic storms come ripping through. And way out in the boonies, it wasn't even in the city. The power lines got knocked down, and most of Marietta, Ohio, and most of Parkersburg, no power. And it took them days
to get all those down trees moved and to get those lines all strung up and fixed. And in that time, grocery stores lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of frozen and refrigerated food. Nobody could do any transactions because all the cash registers were electronic. People were getting frantic because after the second day their gas was running low in their car and they couldn't pump any gas because again the pumps were electric and they couldn't ring up the purchase anyway because again registers are electric. Use a credit card, sorry, tough. Another thing that was electric. And you couldn't buy food, you couldn't cool your house, even though it was the middle of the frickin' summer. And if you lived in a trailer, trust me, toaster oven. And you couldn't do anything. You couldn't even pass the time to try and forget how miserable you were because, you were sitting there in the dark. You couldn't read a book unless you had candles. And, we do, electricity is one of the things that we depend on for nearly everything on a second by second basis. Think of all the people that had insulin. The electricity goes out, the refrigeration goes out, the insulin goes bad. And this is not a circumstance that you can wait through for 3 or 4 days till the drugstores open back up. Disasters all over the place. Losses. And that was just from a windstorm. If it was something more severe, like the power plant itself blowing up or something, we'd all be skunked. But every mobile, I think every home should be equipped with a propane generator, and it should have a sizable. It wouldn't even have to be a fancy lithium battery or anything like that, but it's just a large battery backup. An old car battery type battery backup that would last for it would they'd be huge, cumbersome, and primitive, but they'd be about the size of a refrigerator to power a house for any length of time. But it's not like you're going to try and drive it down the street, so the size and weight doesn't really matter once you got it installed. Houses should have generators. Houses should have battery backup. We should regard them as necessary as we would regard having a nice backyard and a good coat of paint. There should be a reserve tank for holding water. A couple of rain barrels. They have oil drum, steel drums you can get. You can fill them with water and use it to, we lived in a house once. If the water was, I don't remember if it was a well or not, but if the water was going out quite frequently, and or it would go bad for some reason, or I believe coal mines in the area or something, and we had a steel drum out back that Dad kept filled up whenever we had water, whenever we could get clean water, we'd fill it up with that, and we depended on that for several stretches, for drinking, for cleaning, for everything else. And so on and so forth. There are many changes that make to a basic structure of a mobile home or a trailer or a efficiency home, whatever they want to call it, and that would from the small to large, it could make a house like this longer lasting, more energy efficient, and more prepared for the countless constant crises that most communities go through.
Oh my. Yeah, that's the problem with these people that talk about alternative energy or renewable energy. They don't think of using energy to supplement what we have. They're constantly we'll use solar energy to replace coal, oil, and gas. Doesn't work very well. But as a supplement, as a way to reduce costs and a way to make coal, oil, and gas stretch further, even simple applications like a solar water heater, solar water preheater, go miles further. If you follow what I'm saying, but I would have to be about 20 years younger and about $500,000 richer to even think about tackling that kind of project. But somebody ought to tell Elon Musk, screw the electric cars. Work on designing better mobile homes. Give us some trailers that stay warm in winter. You know, build them in with built-in default features like water heating solar panels and innate things like that, and like I said, water heating solar panels and maybe some sort of gas, electric, or gas electric generator or gasoline powered electric generator, or even a Stirling engine generator would be a thing. Something to generate enough electricity to keep the bare minimum in an average American home running. Like keeping the refrigerator running. And you know being able to cook. Stuff like that. No, we can't get anybody to think of that idea. Because it's simple, practical, functional. It would get the job done, and it wouldn't be dramatic and flashy. It'd be subtle and unromantic. There's an interesting one of the last episode of one of the last episodes of My Hero Academia. I saw several of the students from Class 1A. They had to take their own remedial courses because they had failed to get their provisional license. And their assignment for the day is that they had to take care of a bunch of grade school kids, 6-year-old, 5, 6-year-old kids, kindergarten kids, and the kids were little monsters. The teacher was reduced to tears, literal tears, and what it was is that these kids, well, they all had quirks, and they were much more powerful than previous. Kids were getting, in one of the premises of the story is that quirks each generation, thus far, have been a little bit more powerful than the last. And this current batch of brats were way more powerful than the hero students had been at their age. And in fact, they were almost on par with the students, or thought they were. And these kids, they had these this entire class of 5-year-old brats were had these kick-ass superpowers and had gotten it in their heads that they were they didn't have to listen to any adults and that they were better than any of the stupid heroes that they saw out there. Because at this point in the story, a lot of heroes were getting in trouble, and the police were having trouble, and the heroes were having trouble with villains, and basically in these kids' lives, they had any adult in their general experience outmatched, especially their poor teacher who. Apparently either didn't have a quirk or didn't have one worth mentioning. And the three or four remedial students had to figure out how to get it across these, to knock that nonsense out of these kids in some way without uh, you know. Uh, doing anything too drastic. They had to convince these kids that hey, guess what? You still have to answer to the grown-ups. And in retrospect, it was a very feasible idea. I mean, you think about the ringleader of the Little Rats was a particularly arrogant little kid who thinks to himself, look at all these dummies. The police are always on TV getting in trouble. The heroes are always on TV. Having failed and gotten in trouble, and our teacher is a big crybaby, and why should we listen to these people? Because we can do anything better than the grown-ups can, and I can even play piano better than most of the adults can, and so on and so forth. And that's precisely what the kind of thing you'd have with a rapidly growing population of people with superpowers, even with little kids that were just starting out with their powers, and. It would make parenting a very complicated proposition. And basically, these kids had, these students had to get through these kids before they ended up with an entire classroom full of kachans. Oh, with solar heat is hail damage. Well, that's why you use things like clear plastic or plexiglass rather than glass. And in winter, keeping the panels free of snow. If you installed I've got a sort of mental image of a pull rope attached to a wiper. A wiper on a spring. You pull the rope, the wiper slides down the panel and then slides back up. To clean leaves or dirt or snow off the glass. That's why solar panels are canted at an angle too, among other things. Just keep stuff from piling up on top of them. You don't have to necessarily put them up on the roof. I'm just thinking that having them built into the roof would be most efficient. You could set them out in the backyard for all you wanted, Whoa, beg your pardon. Ouch. Oh, that just got a little spot on the back of my heel here. Check it out. After that little run I had to do to the hospital a few months back from that infection in my leg, I'm always terrified of finding a really nasty wound that I haven't noticed. Well, another day in paradise. What can I say? All right. It is. It is 1 in the morning. Okay, so let's call it a night. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for your support, for your donations, all the other stuff that you do.
For all the things that you do that makes you truly you.
Okay. We'll see you later. Catch you tomorrow. We'll try and finish up that commission. And maybe get some more stuff done. Do some reading and talking and arguing and politicking and all that other stuff. Well, you all take care of yourselves and you have yourselves a good night. All right? Nighty night.